6 o'clock, so I'm gonna begin, and I hope that this finds you well, whether you are viewing now or later. Yeah, I just wanted to take this opportunity to just talk a little bit about my recent experiences in Mongolia. And I just wanted to open the space up for a kind of open and free container. Maybe if there's some other people joining in on the live, there might be the opportunity for some questions at the end. Like that would be nice to do, in case anybody tunes in now and catches, and if anything sparks any interest or curiosity, then I would be very happy to answer questions. And yeah, so cup of tea, crucial. Yeah, so where to begin, really? I'm gonna introduce you to my little mascot, which is a lovely little wooden ornament that I brought back with me. And this is our gentleman and our lady. It's kind of, it almost looks like a bronzy kind of effect, but it's painted and it's wooden. In the back, see the bow and arrow and the hats. Picked up 2 of these. I've got one on a little shrine that I've made now, which is a kind of collection of Mongolia things. And I brought one from my dad as well, because I think they just are really nice. And my introduction with this is thinking about Mother and Father Spirit, Mother Earth, Father Sky. And that was a little bit of what I wanted to talk about in terms of the spiritual structure, or the kind of the dominant influences that are still prevalent within Mongolian culture, particularly with reference to shamanism or Tengriism. So this mother and father, it's making me think of as above, so below, and the balance of relationship between 2 polarities of energy, so masculine, feminine. But these figures are also our protectors, representative of our ancestors, and caretakers of our environment and our shared space, that we're cohabiting, and we're living not just with plants and animals, but we're also living in amongst, if you maintain that spaces and environments have qualities or energies, maybe the animistic view looks and examines the world as everything having consciousness: plants, animals, rocks, rivers. And in Mongolia they have these structures, which are kind of they're like temporal structures that are always changing and developing because people are always contributing to them. So in rural spaces, in the UK and Scotland in particular, we usually mark the high point of a hill with stones, and we pile them together, and it's that's called a cairn. So it was evocative of this kind of idea, but in Mongolia they are called ovo, and they can be placed really at any point on top of hillsides, and at high points on the peak is quite common. But you'll find them beside rivers. You'll also find them close to new developments or pieces of road, because what they actually are convergence points and places for people to participate in some and interact in some ceremony with the environment. So the ovo becomes this ritual space, but there's many of them all over. So nomadic people, when they're moving and in transit, they will interact with them in different ways. Maybe if they're walking past or driving past, there'll be some acknowledgement or communication with that space, whether it's to get out of the car or to stop and actually walk around in a clockwise 3 times and acknowledge the directions as you're going around, and maybe present some offering to that space as well. So it's as much an acknowledgement point as it's potentially a place where there's a consideration of a river deity or a mountain spirit. So people make offerings with alcohol, with vodka, or with dairy products or sweet things, and sometimes people leave something depending on the size and maybe what they have and their purpose as they're going around, as they're setting intention, as it's opening up a channel of communication really between individual and the wider sphere and the wider space. So I wanted to talk about manifestation. And some of you may or may not know, Mongolia is known or named the land of the eternal blue sky. So aside from the obvious weather, climate, geography, and these incredible pictures that some of you may have seen of vast open grasslands and plains called the steppe, and this meets broad vistas that go on for miles and miles and miles, hundreds of miles, and you've got huge open skyscape and huge open landscape. So weather patterns move in and out, and you can see them kind of approaching. You can see fronts and rain coming in from quite a distance, but often you will have completely untouched sky without cloud for many months of the year, and it's kind of so picked up this name. But the blue has become like synonymous with this connection and colour and affinity to the world of spirit. And sky in Mongolian language is Tingir, and Tingir is also related to the shamanic view of a dimensional perspective of upper realm, and we are existing in the middle realm, and then the lower realm. So Tingar is sky, Gazarin is earth, and we're in the middle, and we have this ability to connect between these two points, just like Mother Earth, Father Sky. And interestingly, the word for blue, the color blue, is tsinger, slightly different. Tingar, sky, tsinger, blue. And this color for me has always been quite important in relation to spirituality in a general sense, but also specific to the voice. And maybe you will notice the new ink, which I got whilst I was away. And to summarize why I was out there for 4 months doing some research. Basically, I wanted to visit and to learn throat singing, overtone throat singing and Mongolian throat singing, which is something that I've wanted to do for a really long time. And I'm a holistic vocal practitioner, so it was time for me to take some space for my own vocal development, because in between research and creating and performing and making music, I also facilitate for other people and support other people to build confidence and find their authentic and truthful voices. So the blue and the throat chakra and this kind of map of the energy centers in the body is something that I've kind of been aware of for a while, and there are many different interpretations and pieces of information out there, but usually this kind of blue turquoise kind of quality, this kind of nice color is most often associated with that energy center. And they call like xöömii, throat singing, song of the wind is one interpretation. It's working with overtone sound, and there are many frequencies that become clear to the listener, and the source of the sound is often deceiving because there are many different pitches all blending together, all coming from one source. But it's the vocal development is about finding capacity to create a richness of tone across a spectrum. And the metaphor for the flame for me felt to be important. It was about overcoming obstacles and finding spiritual truth, finding a way to work with sound and frequency and to alchemize emotion, thought form, technique, and kind of blend all of these things together to hone and develop a stronger vocal expression and a stronger connection with voice and a stronger connection with communication between myself and spiritual realm. So that's kind of a result of the vocal journey in Mongolia, and kind of a summary, I guess, of why I was there for my my personal reasons. So perhaps to give that a bit of context, it would be important to mention how I came to feel inspired to go, and what triggered that. Because many people I met along the way, particularly Westerners, you know, oh, well, like, when did you hear about throat singing, or you know, what what was the tipping point or the thing that made you decide that you wanted to go? And I think most people who had an awareness already of xöömii related that to their own memory of seeing a video online or hearing it somewhere on the radio, and then kind of researching it and looking it up and finding out about its origins, or where it is still practiced. And I found it hard to answer that question in a simple way, because my answer felt not lacking in substance, but certainly maybe more romantic than oh yeah, I heard it, I listened to it, and I wanted to go. It was kind of a lot deeper than that, and a lot more subconscious in terms of this idea that was embedded within me, but also very conscious and very lucid. Hello, Francis. Nice to hear someone else on the line. So I've just been kind of talking a little bit about where I've been and what I've been doing, and I've just kind of come back full circle to reasons for for going out there, and what triggered and inspired this in the first place. So yeah, basically it was more along the lines of being in a dream space, being in a suddenly an inspired space of feeling like I need to go here, and I need to go here to learn about throat singing. And that was an idea that's been there for a few years now. And yeah, as I said, I honestly couldn't pinpoint it to like a specific memory or a specific point in time where I had seen something and thought, oh yeah, I really like that, I need to do that. It kind of definitely felt like a calling in a way to go. So that was kind of where this name evolved from, like a vocal journey in Mongolia. It felt kind of like a pilgrimage or a quest in some kind of way. And then subsequently started doing all the research on that, and it became clearer when I arrived there, and as I began to meet people and do the voice work, that it really was, yeah, I was kind of being carried, if you like, on this kind of river or this wind. So yeah, I wanted to talk about manifestation in this beautiful place, because geographically speaking, Mongolia is pretty high. It's You have the Siberian plateau and Russia, and then you have the Tibetan plateau in from China into Tibet. So Mongolia is bang in the middle of these two places, and the elevation is right up here. So we're talking at the neck upwards in terms of where we are in the map of the body, or the map of Mother Earth. And it was for this reason, after a time of being there and kind of adjusting to the heat initially in the summer months when I first arrived, that I started to think about the relationship of where I was in terms of how close I was to the sky, and how quickly things were beginning to manifest for me. And I kind of sat with this idea for a bit and thought, maybe this is fantastical, maybe this is my imagination. But after kind of becoming more comfortable in that space and finding that I was actually quite grounded and quite relaxed and felt kind of connected to the environment and the earth, I thought, okay, no, there is something occurring here which is strange, but also enlivening, and it was related to everyday occurrences of things that I thought about, or things that I maybe without attachment was like, oh, I would quite like this, or this would be quite interesting, and these things seemed to doors seemed to open, and paths seemed to form, interactions seemed to come to fruition, or contacts would appear, and within moments, within minutes, within hours, within days, something would pop up, and it would be a sort of a little kind of like messenger in my mind would say, I'm sure a few days ago, or a few, like a few hours ago, I was just thinking about exactly that. So I started to play with this, because I thought, okay, I'm in this space, I've got this amazing opportunity to really dive deeper into my own kind of spiritual inquiry at the moment. I had not long before leaving in June had just finished doing the 6-month intuitive training with Corinne Grillo with the Angel Alchemy Academy, which was a really supportive and amazing opportunity for me to do some deeper work with developing and reinforcing trust in intuition. So I felt in a really good space before going out, and I was like, okay, I'm kind of away from that support network now. I'm in a new context, a new space, new language, new environment, and I'm working with my primary spiritual tool, which is my voice, and my kind of main focus. I was like, okay, like I can definitely allow myself more curiosity and more movement to kind of just play, essentially. And that was something that definitely I left and came home with, was this reminder of play as being such an important tool in terms of manifestation and developing ideas, and bringing yourself to a point where you're in an optimistic headspace, you're in a good and receptive frame of mind, and you're in an abundant frame of mind, because you're bringing the element of play into the way that you view the world. And it's kind of like something that develops in trust over time. So you look at animals or children, and they're kind of joyful, sometimes unconscious interactions that are so much based in this play space. They're just experimenting, they're being creative, and they're interacting. They're looking for feedback, and then the sophistication of what they try to aim for, and where they try to go with it, evolves over time as they begin to trust the responses they get from each other and from the environment. So I felt like that was something that I was able to really hone and develop whilst I was there. And it would be silly things like you know travel connections, or just, yeah, really testing the waters kind of gently with like, oh, it would be great if I could find a travel connection that's not only going here, but you know, I was starting to like make specifications about the kind of people that I wanted to meet along the way, and based on what my needs were at the time. So quite often that related to, you know, I need to find another teacher, or I need to find someone who's got a connection in this place, or I need to develop my understanding of a certain community, or there's something that I'm still not understanding in relation to language. So it was just sort of things that were very active and conscious in my uh, imagination and like processing, but I was really putting that energy out there, is what I would say. And kind of leaving like little requests, again, trying to detach too much from outcome and expectation, but also monitoring things in such a way that I was conscious of, like, yeah, no, I put that out there and I directed that energy, and I asked for this. So as time went on, and I kind of felt like I was getting more comfortable with essentially a dialogue, is what I would call it, because just as you speak to someone, there's a response element and an exchange of energy going on. And I suppose the thing that seems to come up most in terms of blocking or doubting your capacity to communicate with spirit, is this idea that you're not receiving solid, tangible answers. You know, like, you're maybe not getting this like really loud voice in your ear that's like the kind of the cartoonized version of, you know, an all encompassing kind of like all-knowing, omnipotent force, you know, like the kind of like booming voice that, and there's no doubt that some people have awakening experiences, or they have a particular affinity to like a kind of like an auditory sensitivity. But I think for the most part, people experience energy in a much more subtle way, and that comes through direct messages, or through images, through writing, through objects. And I think the more you tune into the broader field of consciousness, the more you begin to understand and appreciate that everything that comes to your path, comes to you, is information. And I suppose the intricacy with that is fine tuning your perspective to find the relatedness to which direction you're currently headed in, and what kind of spiritual frequency you're holding. So if you're seeking something, or, you know, you begin, things come that begin to point you in the direction that you want to go, or that give you the next piece of the puzzle. So definitely the play element, and then the trust element with that as you begin to grow in confidence, and then the kind of cessation of that doubtful kind of self-suppressing part of the voice that is like, oh no, well, that can't be related to that, or, you know, oh no, spirit can't be talking to me, because it's maybe kind of like, you know, you're putting yourself down for whatever reason. So what I found in this like incredible environment, as I'm kind of thinking, okay, like, the shamanic tradition differs from other shamanic cultures, not so much in general practice, but the fact that they are really at this height point at the top of the world. And I'm relaying some information that was shared by a shamanic practitioner that I met there. He said, we really communicate in a very clear way with ancestors, and we do that with more emphasis than other shamanic cultures, and part of the reason for that is simply because we are closer to the sky. We're closer to spirit in a physical sense, or we're closer to that realm. So that idea really stuck with me, and that was something that I kind of began to just gently explore when I visited a mountain, or I was at a high point. You know, you have that feeling of elevation and connectedness to the sky anyway, just from a physical point of view. But just beginning to think, okay, well, why can't I play with this idea? Why can't I explore this notion that like I'm that bit closer in a sort of a psychological sense and a physical sense? So that takes me back to this idea again of as above, so below, as within, so without. And yeah, so most of you will know that idea, that thread of like balance and polarity is something that runs very strongly through shamanic traditions. So it's tricky to try and pick up the thread here and think, okay, where can it next go? Because there's so many things to talk about, but there's not so many people on live. But in case, Francis, if you have any questions or any thoughts, then I would be very open to you jumping on, and very happy to chat to you. So don't hesitate or feel shy. And I think you weren't on when I showed this little cute little wooden ornament, which is man and woman, and he's got his bow and arrow behind, and I just picked it up because it totally made me think of like Earth Mother and Sky Father, and protectors, and it's on my little Mongolian shrine that I've just created, which I'm loving, having a little physical thing there to kind of connect me to that place, because it gave me so much energy and so much information, and I had so much space there to explore and kind of find my, I don't know, find my frequency, I guess, with like, you know, following this inspiration to go to this place, and kind of having a pretty clear idea of why that was, but not fully understanding that until I got there, and kind of realizing that it was an opportunity for me to work on the voice, yeah, but the kind of driving force behind that was about wanting to strengthen and develop this direct communication with spirit. So what is interesting, what you said about the elevation, when I go into my heart space, I am up high on a mountain. That's so nice. Yeah. So I guess, is that in a visualization sort of sense that you're talking about? Yeah, nice. Yeah, and I think that's something that was mentioned in different ways by some of the throat singing practitioners, who all had really interesting and different teaching styles, but something that was relayed again and again was this kind of like painting and sound idea. So the overtones, to visualize what you wanted to express. So not only with your intention, maybe with a melody in mind, but that melody or that frequency would be inspired by an image, like a mountain range, or the quality of the wind, or a river. So again, it was about this dialogue and relationship, and this like circularity and recycling of information between environment external and environment internal. So that was just a reminder of like, okay, well, we are spiritual beings, we are conduits for energy, and we are very highly attuned to be able to pick up and read energy from our interactions with people and with space, with plants and with animals. And it's not a case of, oh, do I have that skill? Do I not have that skill? You absolutely inherently have that skill. It's about opening yourself up, I think, more to the mental possibility that that's there, it's always been there. It's maybe it feels dormant, or it feels quiet, or it feels like it's not like a hugely important part of your life because you're not practicing every day in the way that you would like. Maybe you're limited in the space that you stay in, and you feel like there's barriers that prevent you from being outside or taking quiet time, or there's too much work or too much distraction. I think, again, that stuff all feels really rigid, and I find anything that takes you back to that sort of softening, that relaxing, that willingness to be open and to play. Because if it's not fun, then yeah, it's boring. So yeah, I think the main thing that I've taken from this uh, key perspective to manifesting in a way that feels active and engaged and conscious and in the flow is just keep talking, keep asking, keep bringing yourself into a space where your dialogue is so important. Your self-talk, you know, many people say self-talk is so important. You know, we live in a conscious universe, we live in um, a field of energy, and like your thoughts hold vibrations. These are all kind of widely disseminated concepts that are spread by many people from many different esoteric, spiritual, religious traditions. So that's kind of, these ideas are beginning to like entrench in a way that people kind of generally think, okay, yeah, if I hold this negative thought, then I'm going to feel rubbish. But I think this this block that comes, and it kind of, it's just the self-doubt thing again, and pulling yourself into a space where, okay, you're having and holding dialogue with yourself, but also remembering that you are like a microcosmic element and representation of your external environment. So the curves of your body, the elements within inside, the water, the fire, it all exists outside, it all exists in your external environment as well. And what you do to your body, you do to the earth, vice versa. And we are living in really tough times at the moment, there is no doubt. But the friction that we experience, and the friction that the earth experiences, and the friction that the cosmos experiences, they all bear relationship to each other. So the more we come into a space of like reminding ourselves of those connections and threads that actually unite us, I think we're in a much better position to just kind of come into a more gentle space and a more aware space, and not forget that there will be replies to our answers, there will be replies to the desires that we have and the things that we want to bring into fruition. It's that kind of trust, and that continual dialogue will only strengthen over time. It can't possibly weaken. Maybe it will falter, maybe it'll come to a block, or there will be a dam that needs to be broken through. But if there is a continual practice, I suppose, whether that's through like a meditation or like a ritual point of view, like those are really great ways. Anything that involves ritual at all, so simple, and it can extend to any practice in your day. Making tea, reading a book, cooking, washing, anything that involves an element, anything at all. So bringing that kind of like simplicity in terms of like a focus and a consciousness and awareness to everything we do, and kind of just being present with yourself as you do these things, that's all a form of spiritual communication. It's all a form of prayer. It's all a form of relatedness to external environment. So I don't want to run the risk of ranting and raving here, but I just I kind of felt like I wanted to share some, you know, thoughts and feelings about this experience, and wanted to share a card as well that I pulled before I started the session, and this is from the Soul Cards deck. The name of the artist I cannot remember, but I can post it later. And this one I really love. It kind of, I don't know, it feels like it's summarizing what I said. Of course I'm going to say that, but yeah, as within, so without, cultivating some beautiful space and some light, and a kind of an environment that's full of reflection and luminosity, and that kind of coming out of the crown there, or coming into the crown. And this is the storage center, it's the generator, it's the transmitter, the heart space. So yeah, thank you for tuning in, whether it's now or later on. And yeah, if anybody has any questions that are kind of stimulated by this, then I would be like, yeah, more than happy to answer. And yeah, Francis, nice to see you. Thank you for tuning in, and yeah, take care.